Hi, I'm Alicia, the Client Relations and Branding Coordinator here at EasyPro.
I'm Matt Meacham, Director of Sales here at EasyPro.
What does pond dye actually do?
Well, when you add pond dye to a pond, it's going to give it a tint or a color, and you can change the intensity of that color, and so you're giving it a real nice, aesthetic appeal of changing the color, and you also can change the intensity of how dark it is to help reduce sunlight penetration for photosynthesis, and in that way you can decrease weed growth or algae growth. So it's kind of a couple different reasons people do it. Some people even want to make like a reflective look, and we have a black pond dye that you can almost make it look like a mirror finish. So depending on the situation, you can change it up.
So what are the color options that you can dye your pond?
So at EasyPro we have like just regular blue, and it's kind of a Caribbean, like real bright blue. We have a Serenity blue, which is a blue-black mix, and it gives a real nice, like more natural, darker blue. It's one of our most popular colors. And then we also have black, and so you can tint it, like a lighter or darker right up to a mirror finish where, when you look at it, it's just like a reflection. So it's pretty neat.
So will pond dye kill algae in my pond?
Pond dye will not kill algae in your pond. Part of the reason people will often use pond dye is to reduce the amount of sunlight penetrating the water. Sunlight is one of the ways algae likes to grow. It needs nutrients, sunlight for photosynthesis, and obviously water and like at the right temperature. And by reducing the amount of sunlight penetrating the water, you will slow down or reduce the amount of algae growth. Whereas if you actually want to kill algae, you'd use an algicide.
So how is the pond dye applied?
We have a couple different ways to apply pond dye. EasyPro has liquid pond dye, and we have strengths for both lakes and ponds. So if you have a smaller like koi pond or water garden, you'd want to use the pond dye. And then we have lake and pond dye for bigger bodies of water. It's more concentrated. So the way you'd apply the liquid is, you just dump out the measured amount from the container into the water. Some people in bigger applications could dump it in the prop wash or just pour it off a boat, and it'll diffuse throughout the water rather quickly. You can just pour it in a smaller pond in 1 or 2 spots, and it'll make its way throughout the body of water and dye it evenly. We also have water-soluble packets, and with the packets, you just take out however many packets it takes to dye your body of water, and you can throw it out in the pond, and the water-soluble packet itself will dissolve completely, and then the dye will dissolve and diffuse throughout the lake.
Is the pond dye safe for fish, pets, and wildlife?
It is. It's a food-grade concentrated dye. You obviously wouldn't want to eat it. It's very concentrated, but it is safe. So when you apply it to the pond, once it dissolves, it won't dye ducks or pets or human skin. But you do want to use caution and probably use some PPE when you apply it, especially the liquid. If you get it on your hands, it can take a lot to rinse off. It goes a long way. Just rinsing out the container is hard. It's a very concentrated dye, or lake dye especially. But like white ducks will not turn blue unless you pour it right on them, so should be good.
How long does the pond dye last?
When you apply EasyPro pond dye or lake dye, it usually lasts approximately a couple months. If you get a lot of rain, or you have like a water flow inlet to your pond, it can dilute it, and obviously it won't last as long. It's UV light actually degrades it, so if you have it running through like a UV light on your small pond, it will degrade it quicker. And then if it rains a lot, it could dilute it. So yeah, but usually about a couple months, give or take.
So what should you know before applying the pond dye?
Well, probably a couple of things. I think first off, you should know if you're allowed to apply the pond dye. So if it's a public body of water, probably not okay, unless you get a license or approval. But you should know how much water you're dyeing and follow the directions based on the volume, the number of gallons you're dyeing. And then when you apply it, you can always start lighter and go darker. It's harder to go the other way. So yeah, you're going to want to know how big the pond is, how much water, and then the intensity. So, and if it's legal, so or you need a permit. So those are some of the things that really are probably most useful to figure out. The other thing is like, do you want to use liquid or the water soluble packets? And then you can read the instructions and figure out how much based on the volume.
So is pond dye right for every pond?
Well, no, not always. So sometimes it's a really good fix for if you have like a pond with a lot of sediment suspended in the pond. So maybe it's a dark or a cloudy or a like unappealing color. It's not clear, and you just want it to look good. So it can be a really good quick fix for that. Of course, if you have a lot of problems with algae, it can really help decrease the amount of algae that grows by reducing the amount of sunlight available for photosynthesis. But a lot of people don't want their pond to look like a golf course pond or a putt-putt golf pond or something like that, and they're not wild about the color, which is why we make several colors, because then you can kind of tailor it to suit what you like if you do choose to try it. The nice thing is too is it only lasts a couple months, so if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. But it's a good option for like we said, weed and algae inhibition of the growth, and then also just to make it look good, or a quick fix if you think it if it will look good, but you just want to make it look good temporarily even.
So what are some other considerations when choosing a pond dye?
Well, we've talked about, if it's safe for fish and animals and humans, and Easy Pros is food grade. Not all of them are. Some of them have components, other brands out there, you gotta kind of watch what you get. Some of them are not food grade and can be harmful to fish, pets, etc. So you definitely want to make sure you buy it from a reputable source. Easy Pro has a really good reputation of using quality ingredients in their pond dye to get the desired effect that you're looking for, and you're using a safe product.
Is there something that makes Easy Pro pond dye better than others?
Well, there's been a lot of benchmark testing that we've done, and we've taken a lot of dyes on the marketplace and sent them to the lab and had them all tested, and we have not found another dye that is stronger than Easy Pro's concentrated lake dye. So we know we have a quality, safe product, and so you know what you're getting. The other pond dyes vary in the strength and how much they'll treat and things like that. So you're getting a good value for your money and a good, safe product.
What are the dosing application rates?
So for koi ponds, we have the pond, Easy Pro pond dye, which is a lesser strength, and it's made for the smaller water features in ponds, and that'll be 1 ounce per 1,000 gallons. And of course, once you do it, you can tailor that to the coloration you like. If you use our liquid lake and pond dye, the strongest stuff we carry, it's ultra concentrated, and so that'll be 1 quart treats 1 surface acre, 4 to 6 feet deep. And again, you can back that off or increase the rate based on what you want to see visibly. And then the water soluble packets, it's about 3 packets for 1 surface acre, 3 or 4 to 6 feet deep. And again, you can always add a packet if you want a more intense color.
So where do I start if I'm considering buying pond dye?
Well, a good place to start looking is easypro.com. You can look up the different sizes and colors and really get a feel for, application rates and see what suits your needs. And then you can call Easy Pros if you have questions, and we have a lot of reseller partners as well who are happy to help fill your orders. And there's a Where to Buy tab on our website, so you can always see who might be closest or if one of your favorite resellers is on there. Yeah.
Jake's so happy right now, he just gets to listen to us on this one.
Well, what's cool is he gets to tell me what I did wrong.
Exactly.
He has to tell me. He gets to tell me what's factually incorrect.
Yeah. No,
Jake,
it's
is
fine.
that you? Biology, you'd use something. That was good. Let's maybe try that again.
You want me to start over?
Yeah, because I can't remember what you asked me.
Me either.
I said it only because asked me about
Okay.
the fish beds and wildlife.
So how long does Pandai last? Listen, I was doing so good.
You're like glowing.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, my leg is getting numb.
I know, mine too.
Do you have any other questions about dye?
No,
Do you feel like you have a handle on it?
no.
Yeah, I didn't like it anyway.
Yeah, he didn't like it anyway.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Cut.